Your love makes me wanna. Makes me wanna. Your love makes me wanna. Makes me wanna. Your love makes me wanna. Makes me wanna. Your love makes me wanna. Makes me wanna.
Hello, 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 and welcome to In the Mix with yours truly, Jeannie Ortega. I'm coming to you from the Sunshine State, Orlando, Florida. It's my honor to be your host today on TBN Salsa. You know, with this show, it's my heart to highlight people in movies, music, media, and ministry that are doing things for the kingdom of God. The Bible says every good and perfect gift comes from heaven. Well, it also says that God has given to each and every one of us a gift to share with each other. And I'm so excited because today I get to introduce you to somebody that has a very unique gift and is doing just that. He is a best-selling author of his newly released book, Israel Rising, and founder of Ezra Adventures. Everyone, please welcome to TBN Salsa, my guest, Doug Hersey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, for being
It's great to be here.
I am so excited because I got to tell you guys, I came to know of Doug through his book, but my husband and I had been looking for somewhere, like someone, a company to go to Israel with.
That's right.
So I had no idea it was the same person. And I had been looking up Doug in both of these things through his book because of my daytime job and because we were trying to plan a trip to Israel. So it was just, I knew it was a God thing.
It's a
brought
great
us
fit.
together. So Doug, before we get into all the amazing, incredible things you do, let's kind of introduce the audience to you. Tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, kind of just how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, you know, with a last name like Hershey, it's almost something I have to say everywhere I go. It's that, yes, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Yes, yes, I'm distantly related to the chocolate.
Really?
But no free chocolate, no inheritance. So
man.
I didn't, there's nothing I brought today, so what can I say? But I grew up on a farm there and, you know, just always had this thing with Israel in my heart. I was raised in a Christian home, but never really was exposed to it. But there was just this thing with Israel and understanding God's heart in the Old Testament with the prophets and things like that. And then as I grew older and just had my first trip to Israel was probably you know, when I was 20, 21. It just, from there, things just sort of took off in my heart.
Really? So, okay. So you birthed Ezra Adventures, right? And I want to talk about it a little bit, but we do have a roll-in clip that I want to share, and it's going to be a clip. It's unlike anything that you've seen of Israel. I know every time you see a clip of Israel, you see the standard touristy, you know, religious sites.
Yeah.
But what I loved about Ezra Adventures is Doug shows us a different side of Israel. So let's roll into this clip of Ezra Adventures, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what it is. That was awesome. It was so exciting. I'm like I like stunts. I like all these adventure stuff. So for me, I was like, what? You can do that stuff in Israel?
Well, and that's the thing. There is so much to do in Israel. You know, people talk about going to the land, and of course, it's the biblical sites and walking through the land of the Bible and walking where Jesus walked. But there is so much that's going on right now, especially with just in the adventure world. I mean, there's, as you saw, you can snow ski on Mount Hermon. That's in the very north. You can.
I had no idea you can snow ski and go scuba diving in the same place.
It's really fun. I mean, when we take groups, certainly during the winter time to a certain time of year. Yeah. But we snow ski on one day, and I have my groups floating in the Dead Sea in the next. Wow. And so it's it's a great time. And there's 101 things, from camels to hanging out with Bedouins to, as you saw, like motorcycles and dune buggies around the hills of Jerusalem. There's 101 things to do.
So Doug, let's pretend we are planning a trip with Ezra Adventures.
Yes.
And let's just think of the ideal one that you have in your head. What does that look like? Take us on that adventure with you. We have X amount of days. What's going on? Where are we staying? Because I love that also about Ezra Adventures. How does it work?
Well, we primarily focus on groups that are between 6 and 10, maybe 12 people. So we primarily just do small groups.
Love that.
Lots of people that come and find us are people who say, I've always wanted to go experience the land, but didn't want to be stuck on a bus and didn't want to stay in hotels. And so we stay at guest houses, some very, very comfortable guest houses. One which is just several blocks from the Prime Minister's personal residence in Caesarea. But we stay there because there's ministries that are running it that even our lodging costs will support the ministries that are there.
That I really love, because, people save a lot of money. It's expensive to go to Israel. People do that, and, the money will go into these big commercial hotels, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as someone like me, I have a ministry heart.
For sure.
Like, you work with, what's the organizations do you work with, specific ones?
There's several. There's Helping Hands Coalition. There's the Aliyah Return Center, which helps Jewish immigrants get resettled back in the land. There is the Beautiful Land Initiative, which does trash pickup around the Sea of Galilee. Wow. There's the Bethlehem Project, which facilitates small business development for Palestinian Christians. And so really the ideal trip depends on who's coming. So if you're coming with me, you and I are talking about what's important to you. What do you want to see? If you want to have dinner with Holocaust survivors, we can arrange that.
See, and that's my heart. I'm just like, yes. Like, of course you want to walk where Jesus walked, and that's awesome. But you also want to sit down. I want the culture. I want to eat those authentic, meals with the people from Israel.
Absolutely.
I want to talk. I want to hear from these Holocaust survivors. And I think that is what really appealed to me about what you guys do.
And what we need to realize is that the fact that there's even Jewish people back in Israel right now is fulfilling one of the most profound promises throughout the scriptures, that God will return his people back to the land. Wow. So it's not just simply going to see where Jesus walked. The fact is we're living in prophecy right now. The time that Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Hosea, pick a prophet, they all talked about the restoration of Israel. Wow. And so we can not only just go to see it, to tour it, we can actually be a part of it, interact with the people, the food, the land, the adventure aspects, and see what God is doing right now in our day, because it's something that hasn't happened really ever in the history of the earth, with God's faithfulness being demonstrated to a covenant people.
Wow. And I think, that is just, we all, if we get hyper spiritual, we want to sit in our word. I think we all dream about, wow, I wonder what it was like, back when the Old Testament was written, or to walk when Jesus walked. But I think what's so incredible is that we have the unique opportunity to actually walk and breathe and move in biblical prophecy fulfilled.
Absolutely.
Like, that to me just gives me chills.
And what's really profound about that is every time in the Bible that God brings his Jewish people into the land, it's by the hands of Gentiles. So whether it's the Egyptians giving silver and gold as they're coming into the promised land, or it's Cyrus giving money and saying, telling Ezra, anything you need of the king's treasury, let us know and we'll cover it. Yeah. Or when the prophets talk about the Jewish people returning to the land, it says that the foreigners will be your vine dressers. they'll minister to your kings, and to your sons and daughters will be carried on their shoulders back to the land. This is all through the hands of Gentiles. So when we're taking like Gentiles, when we're taking Christians to Israel, we're saying, hey, this isn't a tour. We have an opportunity to do something that our parents or grandparents could have never dreamed about. You can fulfill the actual pages of Scripture and help this process begin, help the restoration of Israel. And it's happening right now in a way that we've never seen before.
Yeah, and hands-on, like for
Very
real.
hands-on.
Like we can actually be a part of fulfilling Bible prophecy.
While doing dune buggies through the desert. We can do it all together.
Which I love. That's the part. It's just like, listen, like if you're trying to have fun and go on an adventure,
That's it, man.
That's amazing.
How can you not?
So where did Ezra, Ezra name or that idea, why did you pick Ezra Adventures?
Two things. One, Ezra or Ezra in Hebrew means help. And so part of our heart has been to connect Western believers to the needs that are in the land, not just to go and see the land, but to really, and not even just to paint a tree or paint a wall or plant a tree, but to really give something that benefits the people in the region.
Yeah.
And then also with the prophet Ezra, it was a time when the Jewish people were returning back to the land, and that's the season we're in. So we want to be able to help the restoration of Israel, as well as help facilitate the fact that God is returning his people back to the land, and we can be a part of it.
I can't wait to go on an adventure with you guys. I mean, it's not only just a tour of the Holy Land, but to be able to even use our hands and to build and to help to the just fulfilling the prophecy is so amazing. So I can't wait. All right, so Israel Rising was birthed right out of your adventures in Israel.
Yeah, from the amount of time.
Talk to us about that. Well, let me show y'all the book. Y'all are gonna see it, but it's just so incredible. Like this, it's a picture book, which is my favorite kind of book.
Right? Who doesn't love picture books?
But you can, and y'all probably won't see, but he gives us the before and after of what it would look like, and I don't know what year this was.
Yeah, so what we did was we got old photos that were taken between the 1880s and the 1940s, and went back with a pro photographer to reshoot the angles to show how much that the land has revived under Israeli sovereignty. So,
well, talk to us how it was birthed, and then we'll unpack a little bit about kind of the adventure that you went.
Yeah, sure. So just from being in the land, just from the amount of time that I spent in Israel with different groups, I just began seeing a lot of the land change throughout the years of me going there. And just one time in the scriptures was reading through Ezekiel 36, where God is speaking specifically to the land and basically saying when the people are out of the land, it'll be desolate and forgotten, and it'd be the mockery of the nations. When the people return, the branches will put forth fruit, the land will be cultivated and sown, the waste and forgotten cities will be rebuilt. And I realized I'm watching this transformation beginning to happen. Now with the old photos, I've always just sort of had a love for history, and you can find a lot of those old photos. When you come with me, I'll show you.
Yes, I can't wait.
In the old city of Jerusalem, there are these old black and white photos that are really only 100, maybe 120 years old, and you recognize the locations that it's actually in the city, but it looks like a completely different world. And so with friends that I knew that would never be able to get a chance to go, I was thinking, how could we put all of this together? And so I found a great photographer, Elise Terrios, out of Chico, California, and she did a phenomenal job on the book.
She really did.
And so with her skills and some of my Israeli contacts and teams, we went through a photo shoot of about 6 weeks to kind of search out these
the before and afters,
the actual locations of a lot of these black and white photos. So in the book there's over 100 photo comparisons from over 25 locations all over Israel. So it covers the whole region.
Wow, and that's really what I love about the book. It's that I know you said they do look really different because you'll kind of see like
shockingly different.
The green and it's just one is desolate and one is flourishing. Like you'll see the desert in one picture and it's the same exact location, and now it's like this booming place. It's just phenomenal, but you can tell that it is the same place. Yeah,
and in the book is the oldest photo of Jerusalem ever taken from 1844, and as well as photos from now, and just in a very clear comparative sort of way. And I mean, it's just so when the Bible talks about one of the waste and forgotten cities being rebuilt, it's photographic evidence that we can show you the cities. Like we can go have coffee in those cities now if we want, and it's photographic evidence that God is fulfilling His word and doing exactly what He said He was going to do.
Tell us a little bit about your heartbeat behind it. Like what was it? You wanted obviously to reach the people, to tell them like this is what's going on. Kind of give us that, like, because obviously this is a passion that's birthed in you.
Yeah,
and
very much.
It seems like you had it since a child, just the wanting to know the history. Give us a little bit about the heartbeat behind it, really.
You know, behind the book is just simply wanting to recognize that God is faithful in doing what He said He would do. He said He would do specific things throughout Scripture, as far as what's coming and the things and the days ahead. And we often look at those as allegorical or spiritual or symbolic, and certainly those have aspects to it. But the fact is that when God says He's going to do something, it usually means He's going to do exactly what He says He's going to do. You know, there's no mystery to it. If He's going to rebuild the waste and forgotten cities, He's going to do it. If the land is going to be cultivated and sown, Israel is the only nation on earth right now where the deserts are shrinking and not expanding, and that's because of the agriculture that's. Yeah, I mean, most of the agriculture that's coming out of Israel, flowers, vegetables, fruits, they're all coming out of the Negev desert. And so when Isaiah 27 says that in that day Jacob will take root and blossom and fill the earth with fruit, it's literally tangibly happening right now. So again, the Bible talks about the desert blooming like a rose. It's because right now the desert is blooming like a rose.
Wow.
And so part of this book isn't just simply a nice then and now book. I mean, any location looks better now than it did 100 years ago. But there's no other location, or there's no other city or nation on earth where God has foretold ahead of time what would happen to a particular region and how it would revive when it comes back. So this isn't just a then and now book. We talk about it as a prophetic documentation of the fact that, photographic evidence that God is fulfilling His words. Like, this is what the prophecy was. Throughout the book, there's also quotes from Christians, Muslims, and Jews from almost every century for the last 2,000 years, describing what the land looked like. And then the photo comparisons. And then at the end, we wrap it all up into a conclusion and say, this is what Ezekiel said. Here's the history. Here's the photos to prove it. You decide whether this is that.
Yeah, what do you believe? So there's a couple of things there. So I do want to say this. Christians, people of God out there, if God is speaking to you, He's true to His word. And, we're seeing that in Israel.
That's it.
If you've received a word from God, and I think it can be the hardest thing. Like, I'm very impatient, so I'm with you. But just know that God is not a liar. And if He gave the word, that He will fulfill it, and we're seeing that. And
that really is the key. I mean, anything that, for our own lives, any type of thing that we stand on, we're standing on the fact that God is faithful and He'll do what He says He's going to do. If God has been faithful to Israel after 2,600 years, I'm pretty sure He can keep a promise to you and I.
Wow.
Right? And so to me, that's one of the aspects of the book. Isn't just simply, here's a nice travel book. But God is demonstrating His faithfulness to the earth in a way that He hasn't in 2,600 years. By bringing His people back, the land is reviving and the entire region is changing.
So what do you think it means for the future that this prophecy is being fulfilled now? You said 2,600 years.
Yeah, 2,600 years ago, Ezekiel spoke all of this. I mean, what the Bible lays out, even in the Old Testament, is that God will return His people to the land, that the nation will again be not two divided kingdoms, but one nation, that the land will physically respond, the waste places will be rebuilt, the people will continue flooding in. These are all prophetic words throughout the Scriptures, and then at some point, there is a king ruling from Jerusalem.
Okay.
Where all nations are coming, and so
is that what we're waiting for?
Well, we're definitely in the progress. I mean, that's my point is that if this much is what God has said He's going to do, and this much of it has been fulfilled in a very literal, tangible way, what do you think is coming next?
Wow.
And so, to me, this isn't just about God making the land pretty, or there's some random prophecy. This is leading up to the fact that God said, Jesus said, I'm returning to Jerusalem.
Wow.
I am coming back. And he's a Jewish king. He's returning to a Jewish Jerusalem to be with His people. According to even Zechariah 8 says, I will dwell with my people in Jerusalem. I'll bring them back from the four corners of the earth, and we'll dwell. We'll live there together, like you and I. That was always the intent. And so even in Ezekiel 36, it says that. it says that this people will say that this waste and forgotten place has become like a Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden just wasn't a pretty place.
Wow.
It was a place where God and man dwelled together. That has always been his intention. And that's part of what we're seeing. It just, even at the very beginning stages, I mean, I believe that we're just at the very beginning stages of what's seeing. We're not at the fullness of what's happening yet.
Yeah.
It's not the Garden of Eden yet.
Yes.
But there are undeniable, dramatic things that are happening in the last 50 years in that nation that are all leading up to something profound.
Yeah. When we talked about just what kind of the stuff that I'd be interested to do when me and my husband go, you talked about just the vineyards and just, you know, the picture that it painted for me. It's just, you know, it was incredible. It's just like there's this rich land now that was completely desert land at one point. It's really amazing.
It is, and in Jeremiah 31:5 is what we were talking about previously. It talks about how that again vineyards will be replanted on the hills of Samaria, and the planters will enjoy its fruit. And since the time that Jeremiah spoke that, those vineyards have never been replanted up until about 20 years ago.
That is amazing to me.
And when you and I go, we're going to have some wine there, and we joke about it as drinking liquid prophecy because it's the actual, it's the vineyards. It is the actual wine that Jeremiah prophesied. And there's a whole other story about that. But I mean, these things, very tangible, very literal. The land is reviving in a way that it never has before.
So there's a whole bunch of people that are afraid to go to Israel.
Right.
They don't even, they're like, I'm not going to get bombed, you know? And this is the idea that people have of Israel because of what we see in the media or whatever's portrayed. Talk to us a little bit about that. If there are people...
Can I look at a camera?
Yes,
which camera am I looking
here.
at? All right, people at home, when we're talking about Israel, this is the first thing I say when people ask, stop watching the news. Stop watching it. Stop reading crazy stuff on the internet. Israel is right now is one of the most safest and most special places to go. I feel safer in cities in Israel than I do a lot of cities in the United States.
And you go all the time.
And I go all the time. Listen, last year was some of the largest tourism numbers ever in Israel. This year has already exceeded what it did last year. So people are flooding from all over. There's, there's like any nation or any city, there's places you avoid at certain times of day. I mean, it's those are unavoidable, but it's not the war zone that people say. It's a beautiful place. It's a thriving place. Families and people are out on the beaches enjoying dinner and having fun and jumping in the water. I mean, it's
I sat down with one of the Hagis and who love Israel, and they're always there. And she was telling me just there's one particular location where all this bombing is taking place, and that is what is being shown.
That's right.
You know, and it's kind of like Doug said. It's like if you go to the ghetto anywhere in the United States,
it's like
you're a little afraid or something might pop off, you know, how I would say it. So it's, I do think I wanted to touch on that because I do feel like there's a lot of people. I know people in my family, they're like, why would you want to go there? Like, that is so dangerous.
Listen,
and I'm like, no, it's not.
All throughout Israel, there are communities where Jews and Arabs harvest together. They have dinner together. Their kids play together. They interact. I mean, we don't hear about this stuff. What we hear about is stabbings and killings and things popping off and whatever's going on. But I mean, really, much of the communities there, everybody wants to live together. People are people wherever you go. And so it's the real issue is not between Jew and Arab. The real issue, if we get down to it, is things like Hamas and the Palestinian Authority's incitement of a lot of the things that are going on. And people of the region, both Jew and Arab, are well aware of what the situation is.
Wow, that's beautiful because I didn't know that. I didn't know that you will see Jewish and Arab kids and people get I really didn't know that. So that was my ignorance. I'm just like, I thought one stays on one side, the other stays on the other side because of the division. I had no idea.
No, and that's one of the beauties of the land. We'll go and eat at Arab or Palestinian restaurants, and we'll interact. I mean, you'll see the whole picture, which again is something that you don't see very often on the news.
So what's something that has kind of impacted you? We have a couple minutes left, but on these journeys, if there's something kind of just, it could be recently, it could be throughout your adventures, it could be throughout the doing Israel Rising, that just kind of, you were just like, wow, it was kind of like a game changer to you. I mean, obviously there's a lot.
Yeah.
But what's something that kind of sticks out to you?
Just being able to sit down with people in the region and hear their hearts. And I've said already, people are people wherever you go. And so there's been times where when I was looking for an old photo in the book, in fact, I write about it in the book about going into Jericho, which is a Palestinian-controlled town, and we're looking for some old photos, and I find an older gentleman that's probably lived there most of his life, and I'm showing him these old photos and saying, "Can you tell me where this is at?" And he says, "Yeah, I know exactly where it's at. Come back and let me show you." And then first we go to his restaurant for coffee, and then we have something to eat, and then and so this relationship just begins happening. And so in the Middle East, relationship is the currency. You can come with lots of money, you can plan lots of events, but once the money runs out, it's all gone.
Yeah.
But if you go with relationship, you spend time talking about your families, your children, what your boys are doing. And I've got 4 children myself.
Oh, wow.
And so I have these conversations with and people want to hear about that, and people enjoy having those types of things. And so really that personal connection in the land to me is what really unlocks everything else in the region. It helps understand both what we read and what we read in the news, but also to me it really unlocks the heart of really even Ezra Adventures. That's the whole point, is that what we're hoping to do is not even just take people on tours or do tour groups. In fact, we usually don't even.
You don't call it that.
We don't even like using the word tours, because it's more of an encounter. It's more of an experience, because it's real people fulfilling real Bible prophecies, and we're all in this together. We're all watching what God is doing. And so for me, one of the most profound aspects of kind of the aha moments, I guess, is just the fact that this is real. This is happening in our day.
Yes.
And you can not only see it, but taste and see. We can taste and see that the Lord is good. We can see the things that are unfolding, and not only see it, but actually be hands-on and be a part of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, we just have a couple minutes left, but I did want you to talk to the people again, because I know that this has probably unlocked a whole different view for some people.
Yeah.
What I really love about Doug's Ezra Adventures is just, it's not the standard. And if you know me, I'm a rebel at nature. I don't want to do anything that other people do.
Yeah,
I want to trailblaze away.
You and I are going to have fun in Israel, let me tell you.
Yeah, I love that. So that's what I'm saying. We're not going to, you'll do the touristy stuff, you'll do the religious sites, but it's about, it's not the same type of feel as a tour. It's like getting the full-on experience. So I know there are going to be people out there that are hungry, they want to know about more of Israel, more of how they can get involved with Ezra Adventures. Talk to us a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, EzraAdventures.com is the best landing place, or certainly Facebook. Ezra Adventures on Facebook is where we actually, that stays more up to date than our website sometimes. But also the Israel Rising, the photo book has a Facebook page. But the most of our Facebook is where a lot of our communication is at.
Yeah.
And so we're always open for emails and contacts, and because everything is very personalized and customized for each and every trip,
awesome.
You reach out to us, we reach out to you, and we start putting things together just to make something special just for you.
Well, I can't wait to go to the Holy Land. I know you guys are all stirring for that as well. So take care, and thank you for tuning in. Take care.
We wanna